So it appears the Kavanaugh saga may finally be ending. The FBI finished the report. Last night, the reports that the Wall Street Journal reported that the White House said that there was no new corroborating evidence. Apparently, they interviewed 10 people. Not interviewed by the FBI was Ford herself and Kavanaugh himself, which I would assume is because they already gave statements to the committee, which was allowed to ask any questions they wanted. Unfortunately, both sides didn't ask enough pointed questions, I think, to either of them. But the FBI took the stance, I guess, that like, well, what's the sense of re-interviewing them? They already gave written testimony. They already testified in front of the Senate committee, so there's no need to go over it again. So they checked all of the witnesses, 10 in total, including the 3 that Ford had already said was at the party with her. No one apparently has corroborated. I don't know if we'll ever be able to see the report, but the important thing is that people that were the swing votes, and that would be people like Susan Collins, who's a Republican, Jeff Flake, who's the one who demanded the FBI investigation, and others, are now saying that not only did they think the FBI report was thorough that they've got to read, but it shows no new corroborating evidence, which we all had a good feeling was going to be the case. Not only because these people already testified in a written statement under penalty of felony, but because you could tell the way that the Democrats have been approaching it last night and into today, where they're like, oh, well, you know, regardless if he's innocent, it doesn't matter because he's still a bad dude. He still got hot under the collar when we called him a gang rapist, so that should disqualify him. It's absolutely ridiculous. Remember, and all these people, like all these lawyers apparently signed a statement saying he seems too partisan and his temperament seems like he shouldn't be on the Supreme Court. Where were they when Ginsburg was out in 2006 talking about how evil Trump was and how he would destroy the country? Oh, they were silent on that. It was okay for Ginsburg to be unhinged and be the, quote, face of the resistance movement and to go after Trump. That was totally fine. It just goes to show they're all leftist hacked. And predictably, you have to ask yourself, am I some kind of super genius? Is this guy, like, super intelligent? No, of course not. It was transparent what was happening from the get-go. Of course, my predictions were right almost the whole time because this was all about delay. And I'd said, I was like, this will never be enough for the Democrats. They will reject the results of the FBI investigation, which they're already coming out saying they're doing. They're saying more people needed interviewed. This is an incomplete investigation because for them, they would have had the interview go on until 2020. That's literally what they would have done. Now look at their double standard on this, right? They call him for an FBI investigation into Keith Ellison, who supposedly beat his ex-girlfriend. Far more recently, she supposedly has video evidence. I still think he should be innocent until proven guilty. Don't get me wrong, but the Democrats are strangely quiet on it. Any investigation into Cory Booker and his admission of sexually assaulting a girl, which I think was probably just foreplay that went a little far based on his explanation, but based on the left standards, he groped a drunk girl that couldn't consent after she slapped his hand away, so where's the investigation into that, right? Is Senator Feinstein now calling for an FBI investigation into her own office and into the Democrats for possibly leaking Dr. Ford's letter and identity to the media and for holding on to this allegation for 6 weeks? No, they're not calling for that investigation. Isn't that strange? Weren't we told by the Democrats that, oh, if Kavanaugh was innocent, he would call for an FBI investigation into himself? Well, we've had that FBI investigation. Apparently, it shows there is no corroborating evidence for any of the allegations against him. And so now we're left to wonder, okay, now that the Dems have set the standard, surely they'll apply this themselves. Of course not. Instead, you have people like Alyssa Milano, the fine actress that was sitting in the Kavanaugh hearing, who was saying things like, it's just on and on, believe all women. But now we're releasing tweets from her in 2012 that shows she's saying things like, I love you, Bill Clinton. What a great guy Bill Clinton is. You have Chelsea Clinton and Hillary Clinton on tour talking about believe all women. Yeah. It was okay when they and their team was smearing Bill's accusers, right? Again, I'm not saying Bill's guilty. I'm just saying there's a clear double standard here. And I talked in my last video about how they were up and hot under the collar about how Trump supposedly mocked Ford. I think he just mocked our claims. Again, my stance was it was a bad strategic move. I wasn't really a big fan of it. But it certainly wasn't even 1/10 of what the Democrats, both the Democratic senators and what their media mouthpieces have done to Kavanaugh, who they have no evidence is guilty. So if he's not guilty, then he is a victim. His name has been smeared. He's been accused of something he has done. That's being a victim. Just like if he is guilty, then Ford is a victim. And potentially, if she's just misremembering, then both of them are victims because Ford's name was released to the public against her will and she received death threats. So I don't know. We'll never know. Here's what I do know. There still is no corroborating evidence for any of the allegations against him. And in fact, the more things come out, the more that all the stories are falling apart. So there's holes in all 3 stories, as I've gone through breathlessly in past videos. So I don't see how you could hold this against him. It seems as if Flake and Collins at least have spoke out. If both of them vote for Kavanaugh, that's game over. That's at least 50 votes. My personal prediction is I think you'll see some Democratic senators like Joe Manchin, perhaps McCaskill will come out and also vote for Kavanaugh because their constituents in their states like Kavanaugh. They're in states that they're Democrats, but states that Trump had won or that there's a Republican push. And a lot of the people there in polling are saying, yeah, we like Kavanaugh. So they're going to need to look like, well, we gave it a fair chance, but, we wanted to hear out the FBI, but we buy that, and so we're going to vote for him. Now, if you vote in those states, you do what you like, right? Like, don't take my word. Do your own research anyways. Don't take anyone's word on who to vote. Vote your conscience. But I think what the Democrats as a whole did here is one of the most disgusting things I've ever seen. It just proves that they're mad for power, and they'll do anything. They'll weaponize sexual assault allegations with no corroborating evidence whatsoever. They'll hold on to them the last minute, and they'll run over even the alleged victims in their attempt to smear someone to gain political power. So I think the whole episode's been absolutely disgusting. I hope that voters punish them. And if Kavanaugh gets on the court, which seems likely, it seems as if the vote, I believe, is going, the full Senate will vote Saturday. Again, I think that it seems likely he'll be confirmed. If that's the case, this is potentially a huge loss for Democrats, not only because they've lost the Supreme Court battle and Kavanaugh is going to be seated there, but because I think they've really galvanized the Republicans and independents that can see through what a sham this was. Remember, even if you're still on the fence, which I don't think any of us could say with 100% confidence we'll ever know what the truth is behind any of these stories, but even if you're on the fence, even if you lean towards believing Ford, you still shouldn't hold it against Kavanaugh if there isn't evidence, and you still should think what the Democrats did was absolutely disgusting. Look at the difference between how the Republicans treated Ford in her testimony versus how the Democrats treated Kavanaugh in his testimony. Now, keep in mind, right, that both of these people were potential victims going in. Supposedly, no one knew the truth, except you had Democrats already saying, we know Kavanaugh's lying somehow without any proof, just because we believe women, so women are always right and Kavanaugh is wrong. But look at the difference. The Republicans brought in a woman to question her who treated her with respect, possibly to their detriment because she was so respectful and didn't challenge a lot of the holes in Ford's story. That's how the Republicans treated Ford. Converse that, or to look that compared to how the Democrats treated Kavanaugh, where they were calling him evil even before any of these allegations came up. They were calling him a gang rapist, all kinds of stuff. They were just very confrontational towards him. Look at that difference. Look at how their media has gone out. Almost the entire mainstream media and is either saying that he's guilty or that his reaction shows that he shouldn't be confirmed, or doing their best to dig up stories of him throwing ice at a bar fight one time 30 years ago, or trying to contact people that saying, yeah, we saw him really drunk. And that's another thing. You're seeing all these allegations like he lied in his testimony. He said he's a choir boy, but we've talked to people that said that he was like a bad drunk. Well, he never said he was a choir boy. He said he liked drinking. He said in his opinion he didn't think he drank to excess that much and he never blacked out. That's reasonable. It's subjective, right? Other people, I know people that think they're fine drunks, but half the people I know can't stand them when they're drinking. So, that's a subjective thing. They take this as a cut and dry lie. Meanwhile, they don't mind that all the changing of statements that Ford did. None of these people are out there saying these are blatant lies, we shouldn't believe them. Of course not. That would be victim shaming. So they don't do that. So, I think that the only thing that could possibly derail this would be, hint, hint, look for it to come, more allegations that come up before the Saturday vote. I don't know that that'll occur. I think maybe the Democrats have started to realize they've overplayed their hand, and this could have been a huge mistake. This might cost them in the midterms. I hope it does. And I would say the same thing if the Republicans were weaponizing allegations of this nature with no corroborating evidence. It's absolutely disgusting. Again, one of the things I want to do on this channel, I will fully admit my bias. I lean Republican. I'm kind of more of a classic liberal libertarian, but I end up voting Republican and siding with them on most issues. So, and I want to be upfront with that, right? And so you do know where my bias is coming from. But to me, Kavanaugh, as I've said, he might be against things that what I believe in. For example, I'm hugely against the Patriot Act. He'll probably rule in favor of it and things like that, privacy and things like that, because he seemed to have been along the George W. Bush line of things. And there's a lot of things that went on that I don't like there. So I'm not saying I'm going to like everything Kavanaugh does. It is not about him. Even if you hate Kavanaugh, our country is founded on systems that are more important than just the legal law. And the Bill of Rights outline a lot of that. You have a right to speak freely. You have a right to self-defense. You have the right to be felt innocent until proven guilty. You have the right not to have your privacy violated, things of that nature. People want to say, yeah, but this isn't a trial, and that only applies to the government. That's true. The law only applies to government, but those theories, those philosophies apply to everything in life. You shouldn't judge people on as guilty just based on an accusation. I'm not just talking the legal system. I'm saying that's how you should view your life. And if we allow the Democrats to get away with weaponizing these allegations and having them say that's reason that you shouldn't be able to serve the public or be on the Supreme Court or be an elected official or a member of a cabinet or anything of that nature, we're in a really dark place. Remember, Kavanaugh just isn't looking at, they keep saying it's just a job interview. Already he can't go back and teach at Harvard because 50-something people signed Title IX suits saying that just being in the same room as him would be like sexual aggression or something of that nature. I mean, no matter what happens, his life, his reputation is tarnished for the rest of his life, just like Clarence Thomas's was. Once that allegation is hung on you, there are certain people that will always think that you're a sex offender. And there's nothing he'll ever be able to do with that. His family will have to deal with that. But hopefully most reasonable people could say, like, look, that's what the extreme could say. We're not going to do things like that. We want a fair system where we could treat alleged victims with respect, but also give a presumption of innocence. That's been my stance the whole way. I don't see any evidence for Dr. Ford. I'm not one of these people that are like, I think that maybe there should be an investigation as to how Dr. Ford's lawyers treated her and what the Democrats were doing, holding on to her allegation and things of that nature. But I'm not one of these people that are like, throw Ford in jail or anything like that. If it came up she blatantly made this up, then sure. But I think we could treat alleged victims with respect and defend the presumption of innocence. That should be everyone's standard, regardless of what political affiliation the accuser versus the accused is. None of that should matter, right? And perhaps if my channel goes on long enough and seats change power and things like that, you'll get to see me criticize Republicans if they do things like this. I already criticized them with the Al Franken thing, though that was kind of the Republicans and Democrats doing. But we need to defend, it's important to defend the concept of innocent until proven guilty, and hopefully Kavanaugh this won't be held against Kavanaugh. If people vote against him for other reasons, that's fine, but hopefully it's not based on this reason, because I don't see any corroborating evidence, and from all accounts, people that are reading this, even that were on the fence, like Flake and Collins, are saying, we don't see this corroborating evidence either, so it looks like he'll be confirmed, and I think that we need to continue to defend this concept of innocent until proven guilty. I think the Democrats have showed how disgusting they are, that they're willing to throw that aside. They're willing to throw away the privacy of alleged victims aside, all in the name of power. And I hope that they not only lose on this confirmation battle, but they lose at the ballot box. And I hope that everyone's outraged and goes out and rejects this. And it would actually, even if you're a Democrat, it would be the best thing that could happen, because why don't the Democrats get back to being the party of the working people, right? The party of civil liberties. Wouldn't that be something, right? Like, I was always with the Democrats where it was like, hey, government, kind of butt out of our personal life. Now, I'm against them when it comes to taxation and financial policy because they want bigger government. But when it came to, like, social issues, I tend to lean more Democratic because I believe, as kind of a libertarian, I believe that the government should stay out of our social life. Things like drug legalization, who you want to marry, things of that nature, as long as everyone's consenting and you're not harming other people. I was with the Democrats on that. And I always felt that the Democrats' mission of, like, even if I thought that their strategy was wrong, they seemed to want to speak up for the working people. That was the original idea. That's great. We need people trying to stick up for working people. Again, I disagreed with how they went about that financially, but I thought it was a noble pursuit. Instead, now they just seem to be, let's create all these like social Marxist oppressed groups versus oppressor groups and drive a wedge in everyone to try to tear down the country and then get certain blocks. So men are bad, so we'll try to get women. White people are bad, so we'll try to get blacks. Immigrants are great, which means people that have been here and don't want immigrants or illegal immigrants are bad. Things of that nature, right? I think we need to reject that, and I think that'll be the best thing for the Democratic Party. We need at least two robust parties, possibly even more than that. And I think that the crazier and more radical that the left's getting, and we're seeing, now we're seeing it's become commonplace now to have like basically the mob, right? Not only the mob of public opinion, but now the mob quite literally, where you have to have Republican senators have police escorts because, the mob's coming after them and they're getting doxxed, their personal information's getting out, and they're getting ran out of restaurants and things like that. And you have Democratic politicians like Maxine Waters saying, yes, That's great. Go after them. You have the media cheering this on and supporting this. You have them basically calling people evil or fascist or rapists and things like that. What do you think's going to happen? It's going to get worse and worse. So hopefully they lose at the ballot box, and that's kind of lesson to the Democrats who will come back to more of a centrist view, that not even centrist like in the term you would think, but just centrist like you're not so unhinged and far left. And like cheering for like ruining things like the concept of innocent till proven guilty and due process, and going against the First Amendment, cheering for censorship and bullies and mobs to demand people be silenced in different venues. Like, that stuff needs to end. So I think this was a tipping point. I really hope it is. For me, it was a bridge too far, even beyond what I'd seen of them. And I just can't believe how disgusting. Never forget, the Democrats in Feinstein's office sat on this for 6 weeks. They then released it at the 11th hour because it was all about delaying and trying to spring this to harm Kavanaugh and give him as little defense as possible. If they had put forth the allegations as soon as they got them, no one's name would have had to go public. We could have avoided this entire circus, and the FBI would have had 6 weeks to do what they did in these 3 days, which was to check all the witnesses, and no one's name would have been in public. And it would have been able to have been given to the Senate as it is now, and it would have been totally confidential. We wouldn't have had this huge discussion. People could have then voted based on the merits of what they thought, if whether or not Kavanaugh's record made him qualified. But instead, the Democrats wanted this circus because they thought it would be a PR win for them. They thought it would force Kavanaugh to step down. They thought it would delay long enough to where maybe it would stretch out past the midterm. And it's backfired on them, apparently. Hopefully he gets confirmed, and hopefully this backfires on them in the midterms, and they could get people could come into the party that will have more sense and be more concerned about working people and stopping this mob mentality that wants to strip all their opponents of their rights. Have a good one.